there was harm done in the community, instead of punishing someone and sending them to jail or harming them in any kind of way, the community would get together and talk about the harm that was done. And they would invite the harm doer to come into the community and talk about it. Listen to the impact of the harm that was done, and together as a community come up with a way to make it right. Okay? So we do learn from that. The restorative justice philosophy, again, has roots in indigenous justice systems, and it's based on the idea that the well-being of a community and its members is preserved through communication, emotional connections, understanding, and meaningful relationships, which we already kind of thought about this morning, correct? Okay.
Great. So one of the big keys to restorative practices, again, and we're going to say this word a lot, so it's going to kind of turn into the Pee Wee Herman word of the day. When you hear community, that is what we're really emphasizing here. And even in the breakout of unity, the idea that we know, and I think the initial speaker said, we're going to see conflict. It happens in our day-to-day lives. It most definitely happens with our young people who are developing, right, their processes to then process and cope with conflict. So our idea here, and what we're going to really push all adults, because this is one of the big research bases that is emerging in social and emotional learning, is that at the end of the day, those type of proximal skills, which is what we're talking about in social emotional learning, those Castle 5, or all of the 21st century skills or employability skills that are important, critical to young people's positive development and the application of college and career readiness, only happens when the adults are prepared and model that behavior. Specifically, when we talk about social emotional learning or positive youth development, which comes out of educational psychology, is that what we really need to emphasize is consistency. So you'll see that we're going to talk about consistency from classroom to classroom, from hallway to hallway, from setting to setting, so school to home, home to the block, because at the end of the day, what we're really talking about is an ecological effect. And what we need is that all of those to reinforce those processes, those strategies, as much as possible. No one is perfect, no setting is perfect, but that's how we have to hold ourselves accountable. So, one of the big things around social emotional learning, connections, meaningful relationships, all of those are, again, foundational to both human needs, right? So all of you Maslow advocates, right? But in general, just making sure that we are establishing good climate in our schools. So, going back to this kind of asterisk that I talked about restorative justice, for a long time, we applied a different paradigm's philosophy to our educational philosophy. So restorative justice came from, yes, traditional roots. However, it was initially adapted to our justice system, really trying to figure out how to battle recidivism and how to talk about what we engage specifically juvenile justice settings, what we're doing with those young people when we have them, right? And so we're thinking about, again, options towards traditional punishment. We have found, both in the research and practice, that practices really live better in schools. Because already we all know, and we'll talk about this in a second, that words have meaning, they come charged, and when we keep putting ourselves in this more deficit mindset of restorative justice, it limits our proactivity about how we can think, contextualize all the different strategies that we're going to go through today to make sure that they are, again, fitting the culture and climate of the school, the structures that are in place, and that the adults have bought in. And we're going to talk a lot about that as we go through. So again, restorative practices, umbrella term for all the various strategies that we're going to talk about today, restorative justice being, in a way, one of them, or one approach to that. All right, great. All right.